So I had one of those light bulb flashing on moments. Screw the 15 cartons of unsold books. Let's take the book going forward and redesign it into something that's better organized. And Wayne could go faster than that, and he can go slower than that. And either of those two things would create space and time.
But the physiology dictates your chemistry. So there's these little tricks we can play. So if you're feeling like shit, it's very impossible not to be happy when you're bouncing.
Hey, I'm Brian Cauley.
I'm Dhani Oks.
And this is Constantly Varied. We're here with Dan Diamond. I wrote some notes. Unless, Dan, you can introduce yourself. Do you want to give your personal history, or you want me to give it?
Well, I'm happy to give my personal history, but I'm very, very curious to see what your notes say. So okay, you go first, and I'll edit them, because that's my profession. So.
Okay. Yeah, you'll edit me. Okay. So you, at 13, this is going to date you, you were a volunteer Pressbox assistant at the 1967 Pan Am Games. You have been the NHL's consulting publisher, producing the Hockey Statistical Bible, the annual NHL official guide and record book for over 25 years now. This one's interesting. Talk about Toronto culture. An active proponent of the Witchwood Cab Barns project. The Car Barns, yeah. Going on from there. You're a member of the Society for International Hockey Research. You've edited Total NHL, Total Hockey, and Total Stanley Cup, 3 other publications. This is pretty awesome. In 2000, you were named the Hockey News' inaugural list of 100 people of power and influence in hockey.
And I was number 98.
Not 100. There you go. You designed, edited, and manufactured Champions on Ice, 25 Years of the World's Finest Figure Skaters, the Toronto Blue Jays' 25th Anniversary Commemorative Book, 99, My Life in Pictures, a pictorial autobiography of Wayne Gretzky. You did that with John Davidson, and another book, Maple Leaf Gardens, Memories and Dreams. You've established an ongoing series of children's books and deluxe gift books about hockey, including titles like Champion Defensemen, Top Rookies, Great Goalies, and Amazing Forwards, and The Spirit of the Game, exceptional photographs from the Hockey Hall of Fame. Your company, Dan Diamond and Associates, was hired by the New York Rangers to design, edit, and process the final film on a book titled 1994, the official commemorative book of the New York Rangers Stanley Cup Championship. And oh my gosh, this list just goes on and on and on.
Stuff. Yeah.
Some pretty amazing things. But I love, you talk about your last line in biographies. This is one of them. So you have your, you've got a signature from Gordie Howe in
7 different decades.
In 7 different decades. And then this one, you're married and live in Toronto, and you have a dog, parrot, and 2 crows.
All of that is true. Yeah.
I like that one. What are your crows' names?
Joker and Zeppo. Yeah. Joker is a 10-year-old male, and we got him first. We found him in Cedarville Ravine 10 years ago, and that was the summer of
they're not just
West Nile virus.
Music, they're creating communities. So that community has value, in terms of some sort of monetary support.
And another thing that we're kind of guilty of in music and in other industries is, which have all undergone profound change, is on some level wished for a return to a system that in and of itself was inefficient, corrupt, mean-spirited, and in many ways accomplished the opposite of what it was intended to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, in publishing, in the same way. There's 1,000 things wrong with the way books have been sold and distributed for the last 100 years, which there's no point in bothering to go into here. There's 1,000 things wrong with it, but now that system has basically been gutted.
Yeah.
People wish that we were back to those quote unquote wonderful days, when in fact those days sucked.
Yeah.
And similarly with music. I mean, the artists beaten out of their royalties, and good work unacknowledged, and impossible to break in, and garbage promoted garbage promoted over the top. Yeah. And if you take it on a larger scale, the financial implosion in 2008 and 2009, and everything that resulted from that, you have people wishing for, a return to the way it was before then. And of course, that system was completely whack.
Yeah. Everybody always wants to go back to the way it was. I think there's some purity in the past that, existed, but in fact, it was just as fucked up. Something, maybe in more ways, it's just different. I mean, I look at the proliferation of CrossFit as a really good case study in how free shit that you give out just from your heart and soul, can come back and be financially feasible.
Right.
So for people who don't know this, basically when CrossFit began, it was completely free. The intellectual property was distributed online in an open source way. Greg Glassman, essentially, through CrossFit.com,
right,
which had, no hits in the beginning. Now it has millions of hits a day, probably. Put all the workouts online, made these little, homemade videos back in the day when video wasn't as good, and basically gave everything away for free and started just writing articles about his system of fitness and this, that, and the other thing. And funny enough, when they started opening gyms based on requests from people to certify, people would pay them for the stuff they were giving away for free.
Right.
Why? Because they wanted to be in a community of like-minded people. Music's kind of the same way for me. It's like, if you're really good at what you do and you're putting out something of value, you'll find a way to get to the top if you're good enough. Right. So I think it's funny. We live in this time where it's easy to get stuff. And, if you're good, I think the term is meritocracy.
Yeah.
If you're good and you know what you're doing, you'll make money. Right. People who aren't who can't adapt to that kind of way of thinking, unfortunately, they're going to, go the way that they go.
Well, it is also a manifestation of the kind of return of a maker's culture.
Yeah.
Whether it's music or artifacts or furniture or clothes or books and people are looking for to support themselves, obviously, and to have a quality of life and less concerned about what corners do I have to cut to get rich now. It's a lot. It feels in a lot of ways that kind of there's everything happening at once. You can cut you can take your ace and stick it into the pack wherever you want. Right. Top or bottom or in the middle.
Yeah. It feels like there's definitely a bit of a renaissance happening in terms of our understanding of what we're capable of. I mean, I've heard this mentioned before, so this is not necessarily an original idea, but even what we're doing here at the Academy, or even this podcast, like we talked about it last time, Brian, is that, to be a person who's not only strong in a physical sense, but also be smart, artistic, musical, basically Da Vinci, who was a great athlete, who is obviously an artist, an inventor, a scientist, and all these different things. It's possible to do all those things now because we have the technology to do it. It's not cumbersome to accomplish those things. And other people are doing it already. Whether it's like athletes who become rappers, maybe for better or worse, or we're in this time where we can just do whatever it is the fuck that we want to do.
There was a guy, I forget his name. He 10 years ago he was in his 90s, and he was one of the founders of chiropractic medicine in Canada, and a fit and limber guy even late in his life, and so he was asked, what's your secret for all of this? And his answer was a sense of humor, a wide circle of friends, and spend half an hour stretching your spine every day and take the stairs 2 at a time. So that was how he got to be 95 and with it, So
yeah, it's funny. It's funny. I think I thought that exact thought.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was walking up the stairs the other day, and whenever there's an escalator and stairs, I'm going to take the stairs, but I can't walk upstairs slowly.
Right.
Like something feels wrong about that. I have to run upstairs.
Right. You got to bounce. Yeah.
You got to bounce. Yeah. A lot of my training philosophy is actually around that concept of bouncing. And I came to it intuitively. I just saw that people would maybe feel better, warm up better when they bounce, when they jump.
Yeah.
And there's something very I later learned interesting about that fact. It's very impossible not to be happy when you're bouncing. You cannot be unhappy when you're bouncing. You cannot be unhappy when you're looking up, when your mouth is contorted into a smile, even if it's not an authentic smile. But the physiology dictates your chemistry, right? So there's these little tricks we can play. So if you're feeling like shit, just like, go for a little skip. Yeah. Right? Or whatever.
Yeah, and, well, those little mini trampolines that people tuck beside their desk, and every 2 hours they bounce for 2 minutes, and then they go back to their computer, Yes.
Yeah. I'd rather do something. I'd rather do double unders.
Right.
It's a little more badass.
But with your office worker.
Yeah, it's hard in the cubicle.
What the hell? I'm doing double unders.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I ever shared the story, but the way the academy started many years ago was...
What the hell? I'm doing double unders.
11 in the daytime, falling asleep, and I had an amazing job and made a lot of money. But I was like, well, why am I falling asleep at 11 o'clock, and I'm young, and I should have everything that I want right now, which I did. And I just spontaneously got down on the floor, started doing push-ups just to kind of jazz myself up again. And it hit me that, I was essentially a kinesthetic person. Right. And I needed to have movement in my life. And from that, literally that night, I made the decision to do what I do and began accumulating all the, resources to make it happen. And it was just from that thought that, we got to use our bodies, like you said, we got to stretch our spine, and we got to smile and connect the dots, And I was going to sort of follow this up with a question to you, Dan. To me, the reason I kind of wanted to have you on the show is that you're, in our conversations, you kind of embody a lot of these things that we're talking about, right? Like you train hard in the gym, right? You're doing things that are pretty impressive to myself and everybody else is in the community, but you also have a pretty dynamic background as well. So I'm kind of interested to hear your thoughts about why all this stuff kind of fits together for you.
Thank you. You put it in an interesting and flattering way. It certainly fits together, and it's a funny thing, of course, because it's almost like this interior monologue that runs in my head that begins with looking at what the WODs are going to be for the whole week and close pinning my week to those 5 noon WODs, barring certain exceptions. It's something that it's work, and it's fun, and it's something you're doing for yourself. And there's the shared community of gym friends that you make, and through the shared experience and the little bits that gradually you learn about the other people. But, to go through the day or go through the week knowing that, 2 hours ago, you did a Turkish get-up with a 28-pound kettlebell for the first time in your life it's profound. It lets you keep a lot of other stuff in perspective, for sure. It gives, I find myself, I have way more energy than I had before, which, before going back now, 2 years was right. Cause I've been hitting it hard for a year and a half. Yeah. No. So.
Yeah. There was that really good photo floating around on the internet on BuzzFeed of you deadlifting some pretty big weights.
No, that was just an amazing story. I don't know if you've related it in this forum here, but no,
I haven't heard this story.
As everybody at the Academy of Lions knows, that the trainers.
No, I haven't heard this story.
Circulate about during the classes, and they will use their phones to either take still pictures or videos, some of which are of instructional value to show if you're doing something right or wrong, but also these pictures can find their way onto the website for the following week, where each day's WOD is introduced by a photo.
Right.
So as it happened, one of the photos was me deadlifting a decent amount of weight, and so I'm grunting it up, and it's up there. So that's all charming, and I'm very happy to have it there.
It was a good lift.
Yeah. So it turns out the very next day, that image is scalped. And on BuzzFeed, which is, one of those aggregator tabloid newspapers of the internet, cute pet photos, tech reviews, celebrity gossip, 28 places to spend New Year's lists, just reasons for people to go there. They're click accumulators, to have ads. They have offices in Manhattan. Lord knows, the company might be worth $200 million. So anyway, the lead story is 16 bogus scientific surveys of 2012. And the first one is, watching porn makes men better weightlifters. And there's my picture. Which credited to the Academy of Lions. And if you go to beneath that and click on the link that it provides, it takes you to the Daily Mail online, the UK big online newspaper website. And indeed, there is a scientific study that says that if increased amounts of testosterone enable men to do better in explosive physical activities. So now there's way better ways.
You're talking about lifting weights?
Yeah.
What's the
there's
explosive
way
activity?
better ways to increase the testosterone in your system than watching porn, but nonetheless,
Not as fun though.
Not as much fun. That's right. Watching porn apparently does that, and therefore, by extension, would do that. So anyway, I tell that story to a few people. I come in here and Danny and Aaron say to me, "Hey, you're a big star on the internet." I didn't even know what they were talking about, but I think about it for a while. And at 2 a.m, I go onto the BuzzFeed website and I go to the Contact Us, and they have about 100 topics for the subject line that you can pick. One of which is, "I find some of your content offensive," is one of the choices. So I click on that and I just say, that's my picture. One could read and take an implication that I watch a lot of porn, which is neither here nor there, but I would rather not have my picture there. And I send this off to them at, please replace it and let me know when you have. I send this off at 2 a.m. At 2:05, I get an email back.
They were waiting for you.
Yeah. It says, "Dear Dan, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. We have removed your photograph. Sincerely, Tommy, BuzzFeed." And I go look on the site, and indeed, my picture has been replaced by an image scalped from the 2012 Olympics of a Chinese guy cleaning a huge amount of weight, like the bar is bending. So he must have watched a lot of porn. And my picture is gone. So but I mean, it's the damnedest thing. So this BuzzFeed, right? Which is, whatever it is, however big a newsroom they have, or, whatever, they sit around, they scalp shit off the internet for nothing. Yeah. They put it up there, they make money. It's
a pretty good gig.
Yeah, it's a pretty good gig.
Wow. So, were you upset then? It wasn't the porn I'm hearing. It's maybe the fact that you didn't get paid.
Yeah, no, that's right. No, I was sort of turning it over in my mind, like who gives a shit, and I'm not identified and all of that. But you just never know, I mean, this like the image is floating out there, right? Yeah. You just never know.
It's kind of weird that, with the digital proliferation of media, through digital forms, it's like someone could have a piece of you and do whatever the fuck they want to do with it.
Yeah.
It's really kind of creepy if you think about it, and how many people saw that photo, and it doesn't really, I don't really think about this a lot, but when you do think about it, it's kind of weird how all your life is there and people can just play with it anyway. Because I mean, nobody asked you to take to take that photo, but you were cool with it. I
was certainly happy to see it in the gym site. Yeah.
And after it was on, after it was available online in a minor way, like through Instagram or what have you, BuzzFeed was able to pluck it and use it for whatever they wanted to use it for.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have some sort of search engine when they say, okay, we're going to illustrate something about weightlifting. And what do they look at?
Hashtags.
The last hashtags or the last, the last 100 images with weightlifting as a keyword that have been uploaded onto the net, and they just look at that and say, okay, here's a guy, let's take that picture.
They probably paid some money for that algorithm.
Yeah.
To pluck that out.
Yeah, no, I know. It's such a funny thing, but stuff is out there certainly, and it will reverberate around forever.
Yeah, it's so funny that you can have your entire life online, and it's kind of cool to think about that you can catalog an entire life. Like if you had if a kid was born today, you could essentially capture most of its life in video or photography online, and which is really trippy to think about because when you die, you die. Like to me, I love the Beatles and I still watch them online and whatever TV.
Right.
They've never died for me. I never met them, so I never had a personal relationship, but I have a really intimate relationship with this band, and it's never going to end.
Right. And of course, I mean, it's almost like the 72 Canada-Russia series, which keeps getting remastered and repackaged and improved and brought out on the 30th anniversary and the 40th anniversary and all of that. And you can, those games, you can watch a version of those games that's way better now than what you could have watched in 1972, just because of all of that. But it's funny. I know a guy slightly, I met him professionally. He's a strange guy, American guy, made a tremendous amount of money through some sort of a software that automated the dispensing of prescription drugs. He made just a ton of money, and he became privacy obsessed, and to the point that he spends real money to have a crew of people scour the internet and try to remove every reference that exists to his name.
Whoa! Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, that's right. Well, it's like the funny thing, Paul Ryan, the defeated vice presidential candidate in the recent American election, there was that thing where he claimed a marathon time that was an hour plus less than his real marathon time. And as anyone who Google searches knows, I mean, the one thing that's there, any damn 5K that any human being has run in the last 15 years, that result is floating around on the internet somewhere. So, I mean, how do you claim that you've run, what did he claim? Like a 3:35 marathon or something?
It was something silly.
Yeah. Like it was respectable. He claimed a very respectable marathon time, and he had in fact run one, but he'd run one in an hour and 10 minutes more. So, but why lie? I mean, yes, I've run a marathon, and I've run a marathon in 4 hours.
You're asking a politician why they're lying?
4 hours and 45 minutes. Why lie on something where you can just so easily be skewered, and what is, people say, well, this guy can run a marathon in 3 hours, 30 minutes.
He must be able to run a country.
He should be able to run a country, as opposed to, he's run a marathon in 4 hours and 45 minutes. Well, any asshole can do that.
Yeah. Like the hour makes the difference between
the hour makes the difference.
Political standing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking the other way. I'm like, if you have that much time to train for a marathon, what else are you doing? Maybe.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't train. Paul Ryan's that good.
He's natural.
Maybe that's what he was trying to say. He's like, hey, look at everything else I've done, and I'm just naturally fast.
Yeah. That's probably why they put him on the ticket. He's like, well, he's gonna appeal to our young, fit, and healthy demographic. Maybe all the CrossFitters out there or something.
Who also just coincidentally have the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's a good thing. Well, I mean, I guess the right guy won at the end, or not. I don't really know.
Well, speaking of stats and collections and stuff, that's like kind of your thing, Dan.
Yeah, well, certainly, I've enjoyed making my living from keeping the statistical database for the National Hockey League for a long time, since the mid '80s, and the focus of that, or the sort of the cornerstone of that, has always been an annual book. Which is kind of the Bible of hockey, called the NHL Official Guide and Record Book. It's a 660 page soft cover book that comes out every year, and it is the book that the NHL issues to reporters and broadcasters and scouts and general managers, and it's also sold in bookstores in Canada and the United States, and a 1,000 or so go over to Europe as well. But this lockout aside, we have been that business model of the book sales driving the whole thing forward and therefore enabling us to cover the cost of chasing down statistics in the NHL and minor pro and college and junior and Europe and the Olympics and World Junior and all of that sort of stuff. That model is changing as the internet chips away at what we do. So we have been talking about a non-print successor to the book, which has been actually published since 1932. I took it over and redesigned it and made it more of a consumer and attractive and well-organized product in 84, but it has existed. You know, it was a little tiny little vest pocket, 120 page tiny little thing that sold for 25 cents in 1932, and it's gradually, as the game has grown to, you know, being 30 teams and all these guys, you know, grown into something and also with a lot more statistical categories that are being taken. It's continuing to grow. So I'm not sure where my role in all of this is going to come down once the lockout ends. What the league's mood will be if the league feels that somehow they had to give up more than they wanted in the course of the negotiations. Maybe they'll, you know, what the kind of work that we have done will be regarded as a luxury or not, you know. So stay tuned. It could change, but it's certainly been a lot of fun. I have to say, you know, because I care about hockey in the NHL, and always was a fan of it growing up. So, you know, if I had, for example, exactly the same opportunity for basketball, which is not a game that I follow, I could do it, but it would be some sort of intellectual exercise, right? As opposed to something about that I have a profound and visceral connection to.
Right.
I wonder what that is. Like, what is it that, you know, certain sports you end up really, really liking, and then other sports you just like, what, don't care?
Yeah.
You know, because I know you've done some work with baseball,
right?
And the Blue Jays and stuff. So, is it the same for you? Do you like baseball, or
yeah,
is that just?
Yeah, I like baseball. The larger question of why hockey resonates so much with us in Canada, you know, many people have tried to answer it in a lot of ways, but you know, it's a cold country and we need to depend on each other, and the game obviously suits itself to that. What I like about what appeals to me about hockey, in addition to the courage that's demonstrated, the courage and the skill that's demonstrated by the people who can play it well, whether they're men or women, is that it is a game in which one guy can't just take the ball and go to the hoop time after time, right? It requires a whole team, and the elite player, like the truly elite guys, like the Gretzkys, make all the other players better around them just by seeing what the guy does and practicing on the same sheet of ice. It expands your range of the possible in your own mind. And I remember when in using Gretzky as the example, in his heyday, in the Oilers' heyday, you'd go to a game and you'd see a guy make some sort of just nifty little move at the blue line, and you'd think for a moment it was Wayne, and of course it wasn't Wayne. It was just some slug on the team, right? But that it all rubbed off on them. Their sense of what they could accomplish had just been expanded by seeing, you know, a guy who was smaller than they were and not as fast as they were, and didn't shoot the puck as fast as they did, but could just do everything.
Right.
Do that in front of them.
And that's the value system, I guess, that you appreciated. It was the guy who made the other guys around him better.
Yeah.
It was the community of the game, right? Which is, I mean, when you look at sports and all the lessons that it sort of offers you, I always found that to be a very powerful one. It's how, you know, through the process of teamwork, you can learn all these other lessons. I think that's what kind of makes us when you hear people talk about sports and, every Monday back at work and they're kind of reviewing everything that happened on the weekend and water cooler stuff. It's funny, we attach these narratives and we kind of, attach ourselves to the personalities of these players. And Gretzky's an interesting one because, physically he wasn't dominating.
Right. Not at all. Not in any way. He wasn't fastest. He wasn't strongest. He didn't shoot the puck hardest.
Yeah. But he obviously became arguably the greatest player of all time. And how? I mean, how did that happen? And I'm sure you have a million theories on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the funny thing, following Wayne all the way up from when he was an 11-year-old scoring 400 points against 14-year-olds, it was always, sure he's doing it here. But when he gets to fill in the name of the next level, when he gets to the next level, someone will step into him, someone will straighten him out, someone, so when he turns pro, it'll happen. He got all these points in the WHA, but when he gets to the NHL, forget about it. And he gets to the NHL and of course sets every scoring record on its ear. And then it's like, if he played 25 years ago, they wouldn't let him get away with it. I mean, but of course that wasn't the case. When people would say, step into the little fucker, people would scream at on the ice, but of course no one could do that.
He just slide away.
Yeah, he would slide away. Yeah. He had, the myth that they would say about his dad, how true it was, I don't know, that he would, when Wayne was a little kid, he would be outfitted in cheap skates.
Right.
That were super soft and flexible, boots. So it would have to be his ankles that were holding him up and making him strong. So he could just turn and slide away. Right.
That's cool.
Is part of it, right?
Yeah, to me, the Wayne Gretzky thing, I've always found that relationship between him and his dad very interesting. And I'm kind of a student of people who have achieved success and all the little, I guess, nuances to their lives that have kind of led them there. And something as simple as, well, you're using cheap skates, how that makes you more,
right?
Whether it makes your ankle stronger or just makes you adapt to be more of a badass on the ice. One of the interesting things I learned about Gretzky was the way he would read information on the ice. Right? Yeah. The way he would, I know this from a cognitive perspective that, your mind is kind of limited to about 7 to 9 pieces of data at any time.
Right.
So, how many players are on the ice at a given time? 12 plus the referees and all that. That's a lot of data. So he would kind of look at the ice as a series of patterns, which would essentially be like one piece of data. It's maybe similar to the way, someone plays speed chess. They see the board as one thing instead of a series of separate things. Right. And I'm like, well, that's how he was able to be where the puck was going to be. That's the famous quote. Yeah. Skate to where the puck's going to be. Yeah. I'm like, that's what made him who he was. He was able to predict things on a very high level. His processor was so developed that he could do what he did without a lot of physical presence.
Well, he would release passes to spots to guys who, at the time he released the pass, did not know that they were going to be in that spot. And, there they were, and it all was like that. That was certainly one of his, trademark moves. And he also had that ability to make time plastic and to put in that little eighth of a beat pause. He would cross the blue line and do that curl, and just that little eighth of a beat, and the defenseman would just slide out of the play. Yeah. Or the goalie would cross the net and would be powerless to get back to this foot that he had just vacated, and he put the puck in there.
So he had that feel and intuition.
Yeah.
What do you mean make time plastic?
Well, he could slow it down. He could suddenly speed up. He could suddenly execute the little pass or the snapshot with moving his stick all of 2 inches to do something faster than you would expect, or put that little pause in there to do it slower than you would expect. And the other guys are sort of flailing away at what they think is full speed. And Wayne can go faster than that, and he can go slower than that. And either of those two things would create space and time. And with space and time, you can do anything, in not just in hockey.
He was an Einstein on ice.
Yeah. But it's, I'll tell you a funny story. apropos of sort of why NHL hockey appeals or whatever. Well, the first time I saw NHL players play was in an exhibition game. I grew up in Winnipeg, and an exhibition game in 1961 where I went with my dad, and we could only get one seat. So they let us share one seat. So he would sit in the seat and I would kind of stand and sit in a little triangle between his legs or whatever and watch the game from like in the top of the arena. And after it was the Red Wings and the Maple Leafs. And they both wore their colored uniforms, which is interesting because, of course, at that time, one team wore white. Like now, one team wore white, but because it was an exhibition game, because it was an exhibition game, it was the beginning of the season, the uniforms were brand new, so by this point, I'd seen plenty of hockey games, junior games or whatever, but I'd never seen a red that red and a blue that blue as those two uniforms. And so we go to the game, and it's over, and at the end, I grew up inheriting it from my father, a Red Wings fan. So my dad was exactly the same age as Terry Sawchuk, who grew up in Winnipeg as well. And they played they weren't on the same team, but they played in the same league, when they were both 15. And so, my dad says, okay, we'll go down to the dressing room and we'll get Terry Sawchuk and Gordie Howe's autographs. And I say, okay, Dad, let's go. So we go down to the dressing room and there's a few people nodded there, and I'm a little kid and I get to go to the front, and I've got my dad's Parker T-ball jotter 98-cent executive pen and the program there. And, we wait and we wait and we wait and we wait. And finally the door of the dressing room bursts open and boom, Sawchuk steps out right there. It's the first time I've seen an NHL player like in his civvies and like this, 2 feet away from me, 3 feet away from me. And he looks around, he sees there's these rough-looking guys standing over there. There's his buddies that are waiting for him. And there's a bunch of us, adults and kids with pens and autographs and all that. And he takes a step forward, ignores us all, literally with the back of his hand, clamps me in the middle of the chest and pushes me back. And I hear him say to his friends, "Where are the broads?" And off they go. So this is the first words I've ever heard come out of an NHL player's mouth. Where are the broads? And 3 minutes later, Howe comes out, ever the gentleman, signs everybody's autograph. And I have the image of my dad, who was also 6'1", and Gordie shaking hands. That's an image that'll be in my head to the day I die.
Wow.
So you get from one extreme to the other. Yeah.
Wow.
30 seconds.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
It's good to see not a lot has changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fun, like I always, in my little, potted, book flap author biography that I will dust off when needed. The last line will be, he is married and lives in Toronto and has asked Gordie Howe for his autograph in 6 different decades. Oh, wow. So when the last time came, so that means I got his autograph in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aughties, and then at the 2010 gold medal hockey game in Vancouver. So now we're into the next decade. I spotted him in a box, in one of the boxes that was just at the top of the section that I was in. And so in the strange tension-filled intermission between the end of the regulation time and the beginning of the overtime of that gold medal game with the Americans.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah. I made my way up and excused myself through all sorts of people and actually made up the last 5 rows by stepping on the arms of seats and climbing my way up and, Gordie,
yeah.
What I wanted him to do was sign my ticket stub, because wouldn't that be a great souvenir, like the ticket stub for the gold medal Olympic hockey game signed by Gordie Howe. But he said he didn't want to say, if he started to sign, there'd be 100 people signing, and then he reached into his pocket and he pulled out 3 of the, like a pre-made postcard that he had previously signed, and he handed them to me. So I count that.
Oh yeah.
I count that as getting Gordie's autograph in the 6 different decades.
Did he remember you?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he knows who I am because we've had occasion to, I interviewed him for a few different things.
Right.
And, yeah.
So now he knows that it's kind of a thing.
It's my thing. That's
right.
That's nice. Let's hope,
play along.
Let's hope for him and hope for me that we get to go another decade.
See you in 2020.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, so you've met, a lot of people, a lot of athletes in your life, and you've seen, the Gordie Howes, and you've seen the Terry Sawchuks, and you've seen, the best players and maybe some of the marginal players. what would you say are the qualities of the people? Actually, in both cases, what are the qualities of the best, and maybe what are the qualities of those who just kind of hung around the margins?
Right. Well, I mean, one might cynically say that they can afford to be, but I think that I found that really excellent guys in sports, or in fact other fields of endeavor as well, have a generosity of spirit, and with that an ability to not take everything too seriously.
Right.
Now, often in sports, the whole part of the skill set that the greats have is an ability to really focus and take at a certain point certain things really seriously, right? That's what they do. But I find that's kind of what sets guys like that apart.
It's almost like a playfulness, like they're still having fun.
Yeah.
With the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you there. That they take pleasure from it. And it can't grind. It can't be a grind. I mean, you have to see, even for a guy who's plays, say, 1,200 games in the National Hockey League, has a long career. If you think of how many times do they take their skates on and off, how many times do they get on and off the bus, how many times do they get, go into a hotel room or skate onto the ice for the first time. But every time has got to feel different.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Every situation is different and has its own nuance. To cite an example, when I mentioned to you before that I worked in radio, and when I did, it was just the general drive home show on CBC Winnipeg, but I tried to do as much sports stuff as I could because that was where my interest lay. And at that point, Gordie Howe was playing in the WHA, and every year for a few years, people were saying, "Oh, this is Gordie's last visit. Surely he's not going to play another season," though he always would. But anyway, we did one of these this is your likely last visit to Winnipeg interviews with him, and got him into the studio. And I asked him about a particular goal. I said, "There's no reason on earth that you would remember this goal, but I described it to him, and what was the lesson that was in it." And again, I mean, maybe he was just being a crafty guy that he was, but he professed to remember the goal and gave me this long story about that it was late in the period and there were ruts in the ice, and he could see that the puck was skittering over it, and therefore the defenseman, because of the ruts in the ice, was having a bit of a problem, getting his feet underneath him to change direction, and it enabled him to take a stride, to pick the puck up, to step around him and go in and score. And it was like his visualization of the moment was completely vivid. Right. Even though it was something that had happened 15 years before that I was asking him about.
And he scored how many other goals?
Wow. Yeah.
That to me is pretty remarkable. And I think back to Gretzky, I always heard that he had, he played a lot on his own. Like when his dad, I guess, flooded the ice in the backyard. I mean, he would have had to basically play, an imaginary game. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Where he would have to imagine other players and envision just, millions of scenarios. And I always pick that out as being probably one of the keys to his success, is that he was able to essentially, create his own game.
Right.
And that energy that he had for observation and obviously visualizing plays probably translated into his skills.
And he also had countless hours of just handling the puck, of cradling the puck and fooling around with it and noodling and stuff like that, which it's hard for kids who grow up in an organized system. They don't get that. I mean, they play regimented practices and all sorts of skill development and amazing coaching and all of that, but they don't just have the hours of fooling around. I recall being at the All-Star game in Buffalo at some point it was in the early 90s. It was when Lemieux was at the peak of his powers. And the practice took place. They had an open practice, and thousands of school kids were brought down to watch the two all-star teams run through their practice. So when the practice was over, there were a bunch of pucks left on the ice. And Mario would see, and kids were screaming, Mario, Mario. He was the last guy on the ice. And he would see the kids, and he would bend down, and in one motion could spoon the puck, and it would fly up in the air very gently over the glass and would land right in the hands of like a 10-year-old kid. And he would point to another kid like 5 rows over and just do that, right? And just
boom, right in their hands.
Like that. And he just did it over and over and over again. And other players would see this thing, well, okay, we'll give pucks to kids too. And they would, end up like cracking them off an inch from the top of the glass or howling them into the seats or something like that. But Mario had those, of course, amazing soft hands, right?
He was playing basketball.
Yeah. Amazing. And then he at that same time, he did a thing again, everyone had left. And so he was just doing some tricks. So he had some pucks and he would be out at the blue line and he would spoon a puck up so that it lay flat on the blade of his stick and then twist it over his head like a lacrosse stick so that so he's on his skates 7 feet tall and then there's the stick sticking up and he would snap it downward and it would bounce between the face-off circles and go right under the crossbar. And he did 10 of these in a row. Right? So clearly this is a guy, not a fluke. This is a guy who's done that 10,000 times. Which is very different than the way kids grow up in the game today.
It is. So, yeah, I mean, and that's kind of another question I had, as far as, how organized things are when it comes to hockey, how serious things are when it comes to hockey in this country. And, maybe it's football in the States or soccer in other countries. What's it like now? Is that sense of play? Is that sense of, joy and gamesmanship? Is that still there for within the system? Like how is Wayne and Mario different from, the kids who are sort of playing today?
Yeah, all good questions. I mean, when I didn't do it this Christmas, but most Christmases I like to go to the Toronto Marlies holiday tournament, which is like 2,000 kids come to Toronto from all over the place, and they run the 3 divisions, basically 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, and 13-year-olds, and by the time there's 15, there's always a couple of kids that you've heard about, that, you got to see this kid. And it's fun to do that. And it certainly looks like those kids have a lot of fun, within that environment. Now is it entirely healthy? Maybe not necessarily. Do we catch every kid that has potential and give them an opportunity to realize that potential? I'm sure not. I'm sure that we toast a lot of them along the way by it sort of being too regimented or too exclusionary or too expensive or weird trips between the parents or not fun, not fun. I'm sure of that. But for those kids who can thrive within the status quo, I think they have fun. I really think that they do. And I mean, I know kids, like parents who choose to have their kids play house league hockey rather than to try to, step on the upward escalator and, like over at Bill Bolton Arena in the Annex. And that's fun. That is a program designed for fun and they have fun. And of course the good thing about hockey is that, until you get your teeth kicked in, it's fun. Yeah. So the game itself is fun.
One of my favorite things to do is, in our context of CrossFit and in particular Olympic weightlifting, which I'm a junkie, and checking out, every lifter now is on YouTube. So you can almost watch every single one of their practice lifts. And I see the lifters who are looking like they're having fun, doing it, have some sort of magic to their lifting. They're obviously highly competitive, but they seem just to have it down. And I've looked at it and I've studied it and I'm trying to model it to see what does it take to make someone perform at that high level. And I think that joy and that gamesmanship is crucial. We're lucky enough to have, someone like, Alex Varbanov and his son Nicky here.
Yeah.
So we kind of get to see that. And one of the things that I constantly hear about Nicky, who already at age 13 I think he almost snatched 60 kilograms today at a body weight of, I think 48. And he can clean and jerk a record 77 kilograms.
Right.
He's always having fun.
Yeah.
He's always just a goofy little kid. And his dad is the same way. His dad, is still goofy. He's got a smile on all the time, just great guy to hang around. I've seen his training videos, back in Bulgaria, and is the same guy. He's just, always having fun. And he just doesn't take it too seriously.
Right.
Except when he has to take it really seriously.
Right. Yeah.
I want to know how you got involved in, in what you do. Like how, you go, oh, okay, I like hockey. You figured out that you love it at a young age, and then...
Well, and I came at it, I was, curiously, I was always the editor of everything from the grade 5 school newspaper on up to the high school yearbook to all of that. I was always one that would be, it was never sort of conscious on my part, but it would be, the teacher would say, now who would be good to edit the school paper? And then all of the kids would be looking at me and pointing at me. And so I came to, through journalism and publishing, and I moved to Toronto. I had a job at Key Publishers, the company that published Toronto Life and Canadian Business magazines, and it was through there that by a roundabout series of coincidences, I was introduced, because I sort of got a reputation as being somebody who was a hockey fan working there. I was introduced to a guy who was kind of troubleshooting for a newly hired VP of marketing for the NHL. And I met a guy, and his question to me was, hey, the NHL has got 15 cartons of unsold guidebooks from last year. Do you know how they can get rid of them? That was the question that was put to me. And by coincidence, I knew that guidebook. I had stumbled upon it myself in the mid 70s. And I would buy it every year subsequently and loved it. I mean, like, I knew how it was organized, and my friends and I would, quiz each other back and forth, and, and all of that. So I had one of those light bulb flashing on moments that, like, screw the 15 cartons of unsold books. Let's take the book going forward and redesign it into something that's better organized, has photos, is easier to use, is cheaper to manufacture, and works in bookstores. And let's do that instead. And I pounded out a little business plan on my manual typewriter that I had used to write my essays in university and high school, that I still had with me. And the funny thing was, though, that right at that time, at Key Publishers, at Toronto Life, I had convinced them to buy a brand new IBM PC. The IBM PC had just come out, and the only person who was interested in it besides myself was the controller in the finance office. And we got we got a PC, which cost like $6,500, with no hard drive. There were no hard drives. We got this PC, and I found a guy who came in and taught the controller and myself Lotus 1, 2, 3, which was the first spreadsheet. So we learned how to use that. So when I made my little proposal, I snuck in early one morning, and I took a few hours on the machine, and I actually made modeled spreadsheets of, with different variables, like, well, what if the book cost $14.95, or what if it cost $15.95, or what if we sell 30,000 or 40,000, or, and just did all that. And of course, when nobody has seen that before, they think the person who is using the software is a genius.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's this association that gets made.
Right. That's right. So between the hand typed, manual typed presentation and the spreadsheets printed out on the little dot matrix printer, I sent it off, and I figured, well, this is, as always, this is an interesting flyer or an interesting exercise, and I'm glad that I've done it. But I have no expectation of hearing anything. And 2 days later, much to my surprise, I got this call saying, come to New York. I think we can do something. And we shook hands, and we had a deal. And I sort of did the first book that I did, kind of moonlighting while still keeping my other job, and it sold 40,000 copies that first year, and bingo, I had a business. And there you go. And I had just turned 30, and it ate my 30s, and it ate my 40s, and it's pretty much eaten my 50s. So there you go.
Wow. No, so you said back in grade 5 that teacher says, who would be good at editing this? And all the kids turn and they point to you.
Yeah.
How'd you get that association?
Yeah, well, I mean, I talked too much, I suppose. That was part of it. And I talked too much, a decent writer, sociable, like to ask questions, you know, I guess. I mean, just sort of, you know, curiosity without being too obnoxious. That's my secret.
Have you kept that up? Have you, consciously kept those traits up?
Yes, I think so. It's part of the appeal of this place, the Academy of Lions, for me, is the variety of people and what they reveal about the different backgrounds, and indeed Toronto itself right now, which I believe in with the benefit of hindsight, this time in Toronto will be perceived as a golden time.
Why?
It's big enough that kind of most anything that can pop into your head is here. It's not too big that it sinks under its own weight. It's still relatively affordable for people starting out, or bohemians, or artists, or to live. And maybe I'm being naive, but I don't think I am. I don't believe that society and business and life here is too corrupt. So if you have an idea, like to start a gym or start a restaurant or start a little publishing company, you don't have to,
grease the wheels,
grease anybody, pay the police to leave you alone, pay this guy to, whatever. I mean, you don't have to do that. And if you want your phone installed, you phone and you book a time and they come and install a phone. You don't have to do all sorts of stuff, or be connected or have juice. So it's open, and you've got everybody from all over the world here taking a shot at trying to make a better life for themselves. I mean, it's potent.
Yeah. I thought about that too. It's such an easy place to live.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not in the winter, but it's still
even
not
in the winter.
bad.
It's not that bad. You look at Ottawa and Montreal,
Winnipeg, right?
Yeah, Winnipeg. Yeah,
Winnipeg. But it's there's something in Toronto. I always thought that Toronto has a very unique and specific culture that kind of boils everybody the right way.
Yeah,
and has kind of been really fun to be in because it is free, it is open. You get on a bus and you see someone from every country in the world, and it's no big deal. You don't even think about it. It's like, well, there's that's just normal life, and there's something really cool about that. I feel like our culture is really needs to be exported to the world. Through whether it's media or music or maybe podcasts. And it's a very cool place to gain perspective on the world.
And, sort of one of my favorite activities is walking my dog in the evening up and down commercial streets and just staring into shops. Mm-hmm. Like Ossington is this oasis of ultra hipness now. But so let's put it aside, but just take any street you can possibly imagine, east or west or north or south of any consequence. And every window that you look into, there's somebody trying something.
Right.
They're taking a shot. Whether it's a convenience store or a laundromat or a fast food joint or, there's a lot of try out there. Which you really do have to admire. It gives the place a vitality and a jump that is really to be commended. And it compares favorably with the whole world.
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
I was kind of actually, you talk about like trying and that kind of, in this aspect of try. I've really been interested, this entire conversation, figuring out why you started CrossFit.
Oh, well, it's funny. I had, I knew I needed to do something. I had, and in the past I had done, gotten pretty seriously into running and got my weight down and all of that, but I never felt fit. And I spotted the gym in Gladstone a number of times and like sort of peered in. And then when on Dundas, I looked in more detail, and I actually came in and I sat down and I had a tea every day for a week. During the middle of the day at the front. And of course that was all one room, right? Like if you were sitting there having a tea, you were in the gym.
Yeah, the last location.
Yeah, the last location. Yeah. And I watched the workouts and picked up the vibe and you know, got my head around the music that was playing and all of that and figured, yeah, this, you know, I'll give this a shot. You know, and, you know, thinking that it could be the basis for something and all of that. And I didn't, you know, necessarily think that it would, seduce me the way it eventually has, right? You know, to the point of, as I, you know, said earlier, kind of, pegging your week to what the 5 wads are going to be, from Monday to Friday. But the appeal of it is so much. I mean, it's as competitive as you can be competitive to the extent that you want to be competitive and competitive with yourself and, you know, and what have you. But the general vibe of your wad mates, cheering you, urging you to finish or do better and all of that, is sincere and profound and really helps. Because of course, I was always the last guy to finish for the longest time, being new to it and older and all of that, right? So it really helped, you know, because I know in other gym environments, there's an intricate hierarchy and stratification, based on accomplishment. And the people who are advanced don't even want to look at the people who are not advanced, right? And that's the complete opposite here. Yeah. And that means a lot. And when I sell it to people, or you know, tell people about it, and you know, people, you know, who I know from other walks of life, and say, well, like, why there, or what do you like about it? That's the one thing that I key on, is the support from the community.
Yeah. Now talking about times and finishing and things like that, because you're so into stats, do you really really track your progress?
I do on the lifts.
Yeah,
I do on the lifts. Yeah. This, even within the limitations of a BlackBerry here, I'm able to do that. Yeah. So yeah, well, I remember the first time I back squatted and did 100 pounds, did 125 pounds, stepped out of the rack with 145 pounds. And it was like, fuck me.
Yeah.
This isn't happening, right? And put it back, right?
Yeah.
You know, all of that. And so then it's that thing of, knowing what it might feel like, even if you're, you know, 10 pounds beyond your personal record on something, but just you've done it enough that you actually know what the stresses are going to be like, and you have some capacity to deal with it.
Well, what's interesting to me is, you know, and don't take this the wrong way, you're not unique in the sense of there's a lot of people who are as awesome as you here, and in lots of other, you know, similarly equipped gyms around the world. And what's always like just blown my mind is, you know, someone like you who's, you know, obviously very, very smart, right? Very well versed in the world and has some cool shit to say about everything. Because we always get into these conversations about every fact of life. It always geeks me out when someone's so smart, runs up to me after they've done their first pull-up.
Right.
Or, you know, wow, I just squatted 10 pounds more.
Right.
And it puts a smile on their face. And I just know that, you know, people go to sleep happier because they're just reimagining that moment in their minds. And so I'm asking you, and I kind of always ask people, I'm like, why? Like, why does that happen? Why are we so connected to our own physical power? And why are people who are extraordinarily intelligent and have all this other shit going on in their lives, like on a high end, why does it always come back to, being in the playground and doing something really cool?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I mean, it is, you are exerting a measure of control over the environment around you. Mm-hmm. And you have come up upon your own physical limit and like sensed the outward contour of that and pushed against it.
Right.
To some success, I mean, like, I'm happy for example, if I come to back squat a weight and it's beyond me and I bail.
Right.
And I successfully bail because I have unsuccessfully bailed. Yeah. So, but now, like, a successful bail is an accomplishment right there. Like, sort of that's, you keep control of this, if you successfully bail, you've not lost control.
No.
You've just not made the lift. But I don't know. I mean, it's very seductive, and to have the penny drop on things like, I mentioned, we talked about Turkish get-up before. So we've done, probably 20 times Turkish get-up has been an element in what we've done. And so, Mikey was the instructor, and he, just provided me with a cue, which I had never had before, which is when you make the first move onto your shoulder. Mm-hmm. He said, he described it as your shoulders are stacked.
Right.
Right? And then you get up onto your elbow, then you get up onto your wrist, and you're stacked from one wrist through your shoulders to the other. And I had not thought of it in that way. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, I could go up one weight. Yeah. That I had not succeeded in doing before. I could control the weight because I was conscious of that cue. Yeah. And that's very gratifying to a little key of mastering something.
Yeah,
It's not difficult in quotation marks, but it's at your limit.
Yeah. To me, it's ultimately very analogous of life, which is why I like this stuff. Is sometimes there's a very simple shift in an idea that could change everything, right? Yep. That can mean the difference between making something happen and not making something happen. And it's not necessarily a huge thing. It could be just, understanding some problem in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of this stuff, because I think about this stuff, all the time. Why the fuck are people into this? I don't understand. It's always about, it's not about, the weight or about the meatheadedness of it. It's about, how does this stuff actually affect my life outside of the gym? How am I a better person, or how am I able to fix a problem in my working life or a relationship or whatever the case may be? And I find like the framework that has been installed since this CrossFit thing started has always, come back to this like physical thing. Oh, remember the time where I was at, the bottom of a squat and it was really hard and I couldn't really make it up, but then, I just like dug deep and put it up there. Like, that's amazing. That to me, that carries so much water for everything else that happens. Right. And, when you were talking earlier about, your stuff in hockey, I was like, yeah, it's the same stuff. Like, we get to, like, you're talking about Gordie Howe and you're talking about Terry Sawchuk and all these other guys, Wayne and Marriott. Like, this is the cool thing about what we do. We get to be those people every day.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Which is, to me, kind of plays on the whole idealism and advocacy for everybody in our culture, in their right minds, to do this stuff all the time, to challenge themselves, to get under something that's really heavy and try to get up and fail and successfully fail.
Right.
Right. But then get back up and successfully succeed, kind of thing,
Well, kind of on that note, about sort of everyone trying it, I know you briefly hinted, Dan, at the idea of taking the example you used was your Turkish get-up and your success and taking that later in the day. So on an extension, how do you take CrossFit outside of the gym and use that in every other aspect of your life?
Well, I guess it happens a couple of levels. On one is by 1 o'clock every afternoon, I have accomplished something quite profound, and so I have the comfort of that and the knowledge of that, and it lets me keep other stuff in perspective, certainly, and that's nice. But also, I mean, it's cross-pollinating because I think you know, if you're lucky, you're able to bring some of your own mental discipline and focus in here and apply that to this work. But it also sharpens your acuity that you then take out with you and apply to problems, challenges, frustrations, immovable objects that you have to try to shift, you know, in life, or life or work, all of the time. So it gives you some tools, and also it puts you in a better space to roll with punches and deal with situations as they come up.
Yeah. I think we need a physical context for our lives, right? It's our, in so many ways. I mean, obviously we have to be healthy and our hearts and brains have to work well, but, you know, we have to have some sort of, you know, challenge to our bodies. I feel it's more of a mental process than it's a physical process usually. But that marriage between the two has to be there. And anybody who I've seen who's eliminated that from their lives, or maybe through you know, the school system has had it taken out of their lives, is usually kind of suffering because of it, in my opinion. Right? When I was in high school, I always liked sports. I've always enjoyed playing things. You know, went to baseball camp, went to basketball camp, loved sports. Never super awesome at any of it, right? But I like to play, right? And you know, in high school, kind of made the shift to, you know, bohemianism, I guess, for lack of a better word, and more kind of, you know, literary and spiritual things. And I felt like there was this like division between the material, you know, world and the conscious world, or the mind, or whatever. And a lot of the stuff I was reading was also talking about, you know, you have to overcome your body. And, you know, it all kind of makes sense, right? It's like, you know, you have to overcome the body because, you know, ultimately it's about the mind and about the consciousness. But it's funny, getting back into this stuff, I realized there's literally no difference between the two. Like, you need both.
Yep.
Right? And I think martial artists have really figured this stuff out. Right? And even talking about things like, you know, Wayne Gretzky and his whole, you know, his whole way of seeing the ice or seeing the world is ultimately, it's not a physical thing. It's a consciousness thing. It's a physical consciousness thing. Right? Which to me is really awesome and trippy to think about. And just the idea that we have all this unlimited power at our disposal. And it really sometimes just takes a perceptual shift to access all that power. You know, it's a really cool thing that I think everyone on some level in this gym and other, you know, maybe CrossFit gyms or Olympic weightlifting gyms probably goes through that process.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
So, what's next for you? What's the future hold?
Oh boy, the future.
Future.
You're CrossFit Games champion.
Yeah, no, that's right. In the ultra seniors division. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to start answering it from a professional point of view, because the resolution of the NHL lockout, which is either is or isn't imminent, will unspool a lot of you know, my next short and medium term activities. You know, so I gotta get that straightened out. And that, but you know, beyond that, I'm happy to cruise for a little while and see where this takes me. And I've got a 54-week plan to do a muscle up. So
okay. Yeah, I was going to ask fitness goal wise.
54. I have a milestone birthday coming up in 54 weeks. And so that's my goal.
Wow.
Muscle up for your birthday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get on that plan with you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind getting a muscle up.
Yeah. I mean, if it's achievable in 54 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Like it can't be more than that. You can't require more than that, so, so we'll see.
Yeah. I'll try to help you cut that in half.
Okay. That would be good. So that way on the milestone birthday, you can do 2 muscle ups.
Fantastic.
There you go. Well, how about this? We could do a muscle up for every year you've been around.
Oh, well,
It'd be like rings on a tree.
Yeah, that would be very, very serious. Yeah. That would take the 3 fittest guys in the gym.
Yeah. No way, it can be done. And I think that's the thing that really I love about this stuff is I've seen very complicated physical processes unfold before my eyes. Like somebody walks into the gym and they've never done a pull-up before.
Right.
And they're like, all I want, for Christmas is a pull-up. And it's like, all right, here we go. Let's get you on the rings. Let's just start doing these simple little movements. And as long as you're, coming back every couple of days at least. Yeah. Right. We'll get you to that pull-up. It's not even a question.
Right. If you'll bang away at it. Yeah. Follow the program. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. It's all just, it's funny how easy some of this stuff is. What's hard about it is that you have to have the focus and patience to just endure the training.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, to get there. Indeed. So, I mean, I did that little, I know I talked to you about it, Danny. I did that little test of myself. There's a website which gives you a program to do 100 push-ups at a crack. And I did that. It's a 7-week program, right? So I just, did it, followed it, did it, and lo and behold, I could do them, right?
So you have 100 push-ups in one set?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yeah. It hurts.
What's the program?
It hurts. It's just 100pushups.com. 100pushups.com, spelled out 100pushups.com. And they just, you do as many push-ups as you can, and that number places you on within a program that has 3 workouts a week, which are intervals of push-ups that gradually ramp up and up and up and up until finally at the end of it, you theoretically can bang off 100. And you can do it. And they say they do, I think it's 200 sit-ups, 150 squats, 25 pull-ups are similar WODs that or routines that they have. Yeah. So.
Wow.
I want to check this site.
Yeah.
So mind 100 push-ups.
100 push-ups. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it's good. It's the basic stuff is always great. Like, people can get very fit just doing push-ups and squats.
Right.
And you hopefully throw a pull-up in there somewhere. But, I know I like to, first thing I do when I wake up, do a minor stretch and just try to bang off 100 pull-ups. Sorry, push-ups.
Push-ups.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, and it's also, if we are in solitary confinement, usually you have enough room to do those 2 things.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, have you seen on YouTube all the, the prison workouts or the ghetto workout? So if you just YouTube, ghetto superstar workouts, you'll see these guys in the hood just doing all these calisthenic, movements. Basically, it's a lot of pull-ups on, bus shelters and, and like street lamps. Right. And squat and just some crazy gymnastic shit that will blow your mind. And these guys are talking through the video. It's like, we've learned this stuff in prison and, we can't afford fancy gym memberships. So we just got to get it in. We got to get our workout in.
Right.
And they're cut. They are absolutely like physical beasts.
Thank the people who have helped make this podcast possible.
Well, the Academy of Lions, of course, we're proudly recording. If anybody wants to find out more about what we do or some of the things we've talked about, it's academyoflions.com. We're located at 64 Ossington Avenue in, as we discussed, the beautiful and awesome downtown Toronto. Also, Chad Magazine, spelled TCHAD, Chad Magazine, great lifestyle publication, and Sully Wong Sneakers and Bags, sullywong.com. They do some really good stuff. Thanks to George Sully for always supporting everything we do. And finally, Bikes on Wheels. If you need anything to do with bikes, whether it's the bike itself or things to wear while you're biking around this beautiful city, check them out at Kensington Market and on Queen Street. And again, just Google Bikes on Wheels. and you'll get all the stuff you need.
For more information, you can check us out online. We're at constantlywaried.net. Find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at @CVaried, and subscribe to the podcast in iTunes. Thanks for listening.
Peace out.
Bye, everyone.